come up to the upper stour again. The conditions are good. It's 0.43 at Hamoon. There's a tinge of colour, quite a good flow through here. And I'm going to fish with a stick float, a proper John Dean stick, 6 number 4. And I'm going to talk about what's happened over the years. These John Dean stick floats came out in about 1981 when the rod with his name as well came out. And back then you could buy proper lead shot in all sizes up to swan shot, SSG. And if you look at the match fishing books of the late 70s and stuff in the 80s, a standard shotting for a float like this, which is 6 number 4, would be 5 number 4 lead shot and a number 6 on the hook length. And then in about 1987, lead shot that were bigger than a number 8, so 7s and up, were banned. And at first we had substitutes that were a load of old rubbish, to be honest with you, sort of tungsten plastic polymers with hinges. They fell off. Eventually though we got tin shot. I think one of the first ones were called Shore Shot, but they were pretty harsh on the line. And then they found a way of designing them better, and we get like the Anchor double cut, which is my favourite type of shot. And they're made of tin, which is annealed, in other words softened. And you can use them on a stick float, and most of the time I'm pleasure fishing anyway. I'm quite happy to fish a stick float with sort of 6s and 4s that are in tin, and I'm going to put a picture up to show the difference between the tin shot and the lead shot. And because tin has got a specific gravity of about 7 grams per cubic centimetre compared to lead, which is 11, you need a physically bigger shot to pull down the same amount when you're in water. So what quite a lot of match anglers did, including myself back in the day when I was serious about this, is instead of shotting a float with the tin shot, we started to bunch up number 8. So 2 number 8s makes a shot that's equivalent to slightly smaller than a number 4. It's sort of somewhere in between. Again, I'll put the exact weights up. But it's fiddly, and so pleasure fishing, I just want to get fishing, and I'll just set up a shot with a float with the tin shot. But today what I've done is I've set up this stick float with a number 4, it's a 6 number 4 float, number 4 tin shot right under the float to steady it off a bit, and then I've put little bunches of number 8s, and I've got 4 bunches of 2, and then a single one just above the hook length there, and 1 on the hook length. I could possibly put a 10 instead of an 8 there. I've tried it out, it seems to be alright, and I've got about, I suppose, 9 foot, I've set it about 9 foot deep. I have plumbed it for a change, which is not always in the habit of doing that. And last week I fished a little bit further upstream in a swim that I did fish last winter, and it looks like it's about 7 foot deep. It comes off some shallows about 4 foot deep, and it took me a while to twig that the float needed to be set at about 11 foot, and that was with a Croquil Avon. Whether the stick float is up to it for this float today, I don't know. I've got a size 20 fine wire hook, and I've got maggots. I bought some maggots last week. They're still okay. They weren't that fresh when I bought them. They're probably about 8 days old or something. And in the old days, again, for a match, I would fish with, you'd get your maggots on a Friday night. They'd be fresh on a Friday, ready for a match on a Saturday or a Sunday. So you didn't want them mega fresh. You wanted to just lose the feed spot a little bit, clean themselves up in maize meal over a day or 2, and then they'd be spot on for the match. This swim has got a main current, and then there's a sort of crease not very far out, and further down there's a little bit of a slack under the bank there, and I'm going to trot down to that. I've caught some nice perch out of it in the past. I'd like to get a perch today. Plenty of small dace and roach, small chub, the odd bigger chub, there's the odd gudgeon, even the odd rudd. There may even be bleak up here now. There's the odd bleak getting into the river now, but that's quite unlikely. And let's start fishing, so I'll get on. But it will be interesting to see how this fish is. Like I say, I've shotted it. I'm going to fish a serious stick float, and it's a great method. Right, we're finally ready to fish. I've fed it a little bit for the last 10 minutes, just a few maggots. Most of the maggots have got a white. There's a few reds and yellows in there. Question of trying out different things. I'm just going to run it through about a quarter of the way across. As I say, it's a deep swim for a light stick float, but let's see how I get on. Might have overdone the depth a little bit. Dragging on. Yeah. Just knock off 4 inches. I found in the past when I did match fish that this shotting with number 8s was definitely more finesse. I say pleasure fishing, I'm not that bothered. Just feeling my way around the swim, and it's going down towards the crease. Knocking off a bit there. Down under the tree down there. I've got an option of moving down 10 yards. Still a bit deep. Just knock off 2 inches now. Just keep that trickle of maggots going in all the time. That's some hope. It'd be nice to get a perch for a change. I can't remember the last river perch I caught. Probably up here in the summer. They're starting to get a clear run now. There's a downstream breeze, which isn't ideal, but fishing close in, I'm getting right behind the float, so it's not too bad. The conditions look perfect, but I've not seen any rises or anything, no sign of any fish. The first bite quite a long way down the swim, about 20 yards down. Probably a small roach or dace. But definitely a start. Oh, not too bad. Lively little fella. Small roach on the stick. A couple of ounces. Sadly with a little cormorant mark. That's quite hopeful, at least there's something biting. Feeding about a dozen maggots every cast. And put just a couple a bit further down just to spread it. stick float's going through better than I hoped. Where I've knocked off a foot or so of depth, I thought it might be a bit too deep for this amount of lead, but no, it's quite nice, going down nice. Just try a little bit further out, just to go about another 2 or 3 feet out, a couple of feet out. The wind's more of a pain further out, but it's still fishable. One thing that some people have done, because of this setting up with number 8s for a stick float takes a long time, especially when you start to get bigger sticks of 8 number 4, 10 number 4, but that better presentation is that they set up a stick float rig on winders, bigger winders than you'd have for pole rigs, same sort of thing, and then just attach their line to a rig. I'm not that keen on it, but I can see where they're coming from. They're setting up several rods for a match. If they get a big tangle, which you can get with all these shot, they can reset up more quickly, and they've done the prep at home, and basically what you would call a cast with all the number 8s ready on there. The sort of, you could have 20, 25. The most 8s I've ever used was on a match on the Warwickshire Avon. I had I think about a 7 number 4 Allerton stick on, but grossly overshot it. 31 number 8s on it and a number 10, and you had to really hold it up to get it going through on a flooded river, but it worked. I caught 2.5 pounder small roach, and that's what it needed to work. But it took a hell of a lot of sorting out, and you don't want tangles when it's like that. I'm just trying to red maggot, but just had that one bite out of the blue, and then nothing. There's obviously some fish there. There's also obviously been cormorants on here because it had a slight mark near its tail, slight wound there. Well, it looked convincing. That's the bottom. I'm surprised no more bites so far. There's obviously some fish down there, feeding quite light. There's plenty of small chub through here, some perch, good perch, gudgeon, lots of little dace, little roach. Just going to try a tactical change. The Drennan Barbarous silverfish match, I think that's what they are, 20s. I'm more like an 18. And what I'm going to put on is a very old Drennan carbon caster in a 22, which is looks almost like 3 sizes smaller, very small hook. And sometimes up here, sometimes fishing, certainly in my match days, we use 22s an enormous amount. You could fish with the 20 and catch nothing, and put a 22 on and you got big chub and all sorts, and then you think, what's going on? The example I told you earlier about Evesham and fishing 31 shot, that day I was on a size 20. There used to be some mustard hooks in odd sizes, and a size 23, which was smaller than most 24s. Tiny hook with double maggot on, double bronze maggot, and a conventional 22 like this couldn't get a bite. So the fish shouldn't be shy up here. No one's fishing up here hardly at all, and the conditions are quite good. It's fairly mild, about 7 or 8 degrees, getting milder if anything. Like I said, nice tinge of colour in the river. The first cast for the 22, and the float goes under. And if I can get him, it feels like a better roach. Well, there you go. You'd have thought it a nice roach. One thing I learnt in my match fishing days was that you'd often have the fish feeding and you weren't catching them. And the difference with match fishing is that the disturbance on the bank, the fish know it's a match, and they get that bit shyer. And a lot of the match stretches were very heavily fished as well, especially places like Evesham that had 5 matches a week. And pleasure anglers on every peg every day. The Trent was the same. I think the best example of having fish that I couldn't catch, and I've talked about it before in a video, was a winter league on Longham, not the free stretch, on the Christchurch bit that's the now defunct Dudsbury golf course. And I was catching a few days early on a stick float, early December, hard frost, bright sunny day, and I started to get these little tiny touches that I couldn't hit. No marks on the bait, and I was fishing a fine wire 20. Good bite. Yeah, no maggot. And I thought, well, maybe they're just little dace or something, and I switched to a 22 and probably got a chub of close on £3, and 1 or 2 more dace. The dace had gone sort of quiet, and so I thought, oh, I'll chub around. I'll switch back to a 20. Nothing doing for an hour, maybe 1 or 2 more dace, and these little tiny bites started again, and I didn't twig at the time. What I was getting was line bites off the chub swimming around, fairly steady water, steadier than this. And they were, they knew which one had the hook in it. When I put a 22 on, I fooled them, and I got a second chub and won the match. And this swim here, you could fish it confidently, thinking, well, pleasure fishing, so it's unpressured water, put an 18 on and catch nothing. And yet, if I was to fish bread, I could put a 16 or a 14 on and I'd catch on a punch or a flake. Now I'm on a 22, I'm just going to try double yellow maggot. I know there's fish there. I've had those 2 fish, I've missed, pretty certain I've missed a bite. I don't seem to have an awful lot of 22s to try out here. Put a bit more depth on there, it's gone a long way down, and yet another bite. So there's fish there, maybe it's just going to take time. I get very impatient. My short sessions means I don't tend to want to fish very long. And I sometimes don't give it long enough for the better fish to turn up. I'm now 45 minutes in. There's obviously fish there. This one's playing deep. Ah, it's a little perch, just what I wanted. Be nice to get the roach. It's not very big. About 5 ounces, but it's a perch. It's red maggot again, but I deepened up a couple of inches, holding back a bit harder. There's a longer hook length on this, another little roach on this 22, and it's finer as well. These old hooks, and these are going back 30 odd years, the carbon Carbon casters, very fine wire, blued and very sharp, and I haven't got an awful lot of them. I've got lots of old 22s from my match days. Just used to be the standard hook a lot of the time. Maybe give it time, this one will come alive. There's got to be plenty of fish down there. I wouldn't be surprised to get a chub or dace, gudgeon. There's 3 roach and a perch. A start. On the far bank there's a crease and quite a lot of slack water, but with this wind it would be difficult to get over there. On another stretch not too far away, we used to match fish it a lot with on the long pole, and you'd be able to get over there no trouble at all on a long pole. That looked like a bite and I felt something, and I lost the maggot. What's going on, eh? I'm starting to wonder if I should be starting to wonder if I should be 10 yards down the river and fishing that slack. Yeah, tiny little bite. Tastes very big, small roach maybe. Yeah. Seems to be the stamp, couple of ounces. There might be a bigger one. Just easing it through all the time. Not letting it run through, but keeping the line straight, not holding it back hard either, just leaning back on it gently. And I think with those number 8 shot, it's definitely a big improvement in presentation. A lot of the bites are coming 20 yards down, and by then you've got to make sure the line's not got pulled out shape with the current. That then looked like a bite. I don't know if it was or not. On double reds then, only a little roach. There's fish there, they're no great size to them. Would have been nice to have picked up something a bit bigger by now, apart from that one roach. I lost sight of the float then, and it was under out. There's a lot of bits of foam, not so much now, but earlier on there was a lot of foam coming down, which is not a good sign really, because that's sewage basically. Well, only that one decent roach really, and that makes 10 roach and a little perch. I think as far as the stick float's concerned, I'm going to call it a day there. Do something different for an hour or two. The important lesson of this bit of stick float fishing is that this delicate shotting with number 8s in little bunches, and you can split the bunches up, make them singly. And I've only gone down to an 8 on the hook length, that's a good way away there. Getting on for over 20 inches, I should think, from the hook. Could have had 10s and even 12s down there. Really gives you the delicacy of presentation. I've gone down onto a finer hook length and a smaller hook, and I've been picking up these little roach fairly steadily. Bit of fun, quite interesting to try it. Moving the depth around a bit, occasionally hooking the bottom. There's a few not very snaggy down there really, but worth thinking about. The idea of a cast ready shotted with a load of number 8s on it, maybe put the float on and if you know the depth of the water you're going to fish, you can have it all underneath the float. I prefer to tackle up on the bank, and it is a laborious process. Like I say, a lot of the time the fishing's not that critical, but for today I've done it properly. I'm pleased I've done it. So until next time, it's goodbye for now.